Hey everybody, it's Dr. Shani. Today we are still on self-care for Mental Health Awareness Month. And the reason we're still targeting self-care is because we need it. It protects us from some of the bigger issues in mental health, being overly stressed, what that does to our bodies, what it does to our mood, what it does for anxiety and depression. And a lot of it can start by having better self-care. So, boundaries. Boundaries is a form of self care, having healthy boundaries with yourself and for other people. A boundary is a rule, a limit that someone identifies. These are permissible ways for people to treat us, right? So this means you're doing teaching. You're teaching other people how you want to be treated, and you're honoring that yourself by knowing how you want to respond to people when they cross that line. And we know everybody does. Everybody crosses lines. People aren't really super fond of boundaries when they're set. Remember that boundaries are about respecting yourself. They're not about offending another person. So why do we need boundaries? Boundaries help us create safe relationships in our life. Remember, we're social creatures, so we need relationships. We need to interact. We need to engage. We need to feel connected. However, there's some toxic relationships out here, and sometimes it's because we're not setting boundaries for ourselves or those people. So, how do you know when you don't have good boundaries with yourself? So, this could look like staying in a relationship that's toxic for too long. Staying in that relationship because you might be good for the other person, but that doesn't mean that that person is good for you. It means not saying no to things that you know you don't have the resources for. So you're overextending yourself when you know you probably should be pulling back a little bit. It's being too invested in somebody else's life and their life choices. So this means, let's say you give someone advice, a close friend some advice about something, and they decide not to take it. And then you get super offended that they didn't take your advice. This happens, you guys. I'm sure you can relate to that, where you've given someone advice, they didn't take it, and then you feel offended by it. Like, why are they not listening to me? Why are they not following my advice? I would just want the best for them. That is not your lane. You gave the advice, cool. What they do with it is on them. So a healthy boundary with yourself is understanding what is your problem to fix and what is someone else's problem to fix, and cutting that tie. It's okay to be there for people, but you can't control what people do. So that's another example of how you know you may not have good boundaries for yourself. So you're not trying to change people. You're not trying to fix people. You're not trying to rescue people from themselves. You're just taking care of that relationship from your end by being there, being supportive. Recognizing when you are taking too much shit. I'm just going to say it. When you're just taking too much from somebody, that happens too. Listen, we can be loving and we can be caring. We can wish someone well, but it doesn't mean that we have to pour out until we're empty for someone else who might not be pouring back into us. That's not a good boundary. That's an imbalanced relationship, and it could lead to a lot of things. A lot of toxicity, a lot of abuse. If you're feeling overly used by the people in your life, there may be imbalance there. You might need to pull back or ask for something. Sometimes it's not something another person even realizes. So this is why setting boundaries is good. Letting people know when you need something from them. And again, it's not up for you to control. If they offer it, great. If they don't offer it, you need to sort out what you're going to do with that. So sometimes having a healthy boundary is saying, you know what, enough is enough. It's not about the ultimatum. The ultimatum is about control, right? You do this or else. That's controlling. A boundary is more like, this is my limit. I've had enough. So I'm going to walk away, right? So another thing about that is you got to be willing to do it, though. You have to be willing to walk away. So you want to teach people your limit by honoring your limit. That's your boundary. You can't keep setting the limit over and over again and then expecting people to take it seriously. They won't, because they know that your limit is too flexible. That boundary moves a lot. So why would they respect it if they know that the boundary is not going to be like stable and consistent? So often when people get hurt, right, we get guarded. We get really guarded and we start shutting people out. A boundary is not about shutting people out. A boundary is about teaching. A wall is about shutting people out. When we get hurt, we put up a wall, right? A wall that keeps out the bad, but it also keeps out the good. And remember, social creatures, we don't want to keep out the good. We need each other. We need to rely on each other. We need to have healthy relationships with each other. But a wall doesn't allow you to do that. A boundary does. A boundary says, this is how I want to be treated. Can you do that? Okay, great. We can keep it moving. A wall shuts out everything. So that leads to isolation. It leads to a lot of mistrust, not being able to feel safe with people. So you don't tend to give relationships a chance. So you don't want the wall. The wall is overly protective. Boundary is safe. So that's the difference. We want to aim for the boundary. And it's okay to let people go. It's all right to let people go. Some people don't need to be in your life, and you can love them from afar. You can pray for them. You can care for them from afar, but it doesn't mean they have to be in your world if they are toxic. So just a few examples. Be self-aware. Be assertive in setting boundaries with people. Be patient to a certain extent, because some people don't really know what that's like. I find that a lot of people in my practice don't understand how to respond to boundaries. So, set it, teach it, but have your limit. Have your limit. Try not to go too far past your limit. And above all else, keep your light on. Keep your light on for yourself. You don't want the pain and the hurt that comes from toxic relationships to dim your light and dim your ability to love, because you need it. That is punitive to yourself at that point when your light goes off, because you don't get to experience healthy relationships. So keep your light on, but let's do better. Let's do better at setting up some of these rules and expectations for ourselves and for people. Okay. Good luck with your self-care. Good luck with Mental Health Awareness Month, which I hope goes all year round. And keep your light on.